Loneliness is eating at me. We are meeting after a gap of 2 years. Time and circumstance separated us, and it was at the moment of our separation that I realized I had no control over my life. Life has its own way, its own flow and rhythm. We are nothing but instrument to time. It fulfills its motives through us. We are all marionettes. Time is the puppet master. If conscious choice existed and I had control of my life, I would never have introduced separation to the lives of newlyweds. We are only slaves of time and circumstances. Though, and if we accept this fact and go on with life, we become happy slaves. If we do not, nothing works as we imagine them to work and we end an unhappy slave. And so I accepted my separation from my wife and become a happy slave. Since then, I have always been vaguely aware that I must never try to alter the course of time. It will only cause misery and chaos. Life will be more peaceful otherwise. The separation from my wife also taught me what old like acceptance and surrender really means. You look sad and you seem to have lost weight. Is everything okay? She asked me when we finally saw each other after 2 years in our living room. Loneliness is eating away at me, I said in a stiff voice and gave her warm up. You needn't worry now that I am here, she said encouragingly. She stroked my hair and patted my back. I nodded my head and without another word went inside to the veranda where I needed to spend time with myself. She had realized I had little interest in her. I had shown no excitement upon her arrival. Her presence, in fact, had caused me a great deal of irritation. Her sudden departure for an official emergency had led me to marry solitude. After 9 months, I had given birth to a silence. I was content being husband to solitude and father to silence. I had been a struggling writer, and without a source of regular income, I relied upon her physically, emotionally, as well as financially. In a way, I was stay-at-home wife and she the husband who brought home the bacon. I would sit in front of my empty pages and dream of my masterpiece, and I soon realized upon her departure that the writer in me only awoke when she left me for a foreign trip with her boss on an official emergency. Our sudden separation had unleashed the writer in me, and it has not ended since or once fallen asleep. Even when I am sleeping, my other self, the writer self, is fishing for ideas and sentences, his imagination always trawling for a big catch. My father had always been conscious of the fact that I would never be able to earn my own living. This was the reason he arranged for me to get married to an independent working woman. This was why he had forced me into marrying her. On the day of marriage ceremony, at the particular moment when the bride and groom walked around the fire, we had seen each other first, already on our way to becoming man and wife. I learned she was a busy woman. Right after we exchanged rings and I put the Mangal Sutra around her neck, she got a call from her boss and left. She convinced my father that it was an emergency business call. Neither the busy woman nor the father bothered to ask for my consent. Everything happened as if I wasn't even a part of it. All the while, I was feeling cold and helpless. It was at the particular moment that the only difference between I and the stone is I breathe and the stone doesn't, came to mind. This line made my day. For the first time in many months, I had been able to think of something beautiful. And it had simply come to me. I hadn't been seeking anything, simply found everything. I guess the pathetic situation I was trapped in had triggered something in me. That night, after declaring the marriage ceremony officially over, my father told me that I was to stay and sleep with that busy woman from then on. He informed me I was her husband from that day and was happy. He had received a gold wristwatch and a big television set from her. The biggest thing, however, was that from the following day, the busy woman was going to financially support me as well as my family. The next day, that busy woman came to face me in her red car. I had packed all my belongings. These included tattered old books and sheet of my empty paper. I remember my father was quite emotional that day. I could see regret playing hide and seek on his face, but I couldn't figure out the reason. I don't bother to. She owned a beautiful bungalow surrounded by blue mimosa on the outskirts of the city. Her Tibetan mastiff welcomed us at the door. As I walked inside, I saw a big patch of lawn on the right-hand side of the courtyard, which had shrubs flowering all over it. I also saw a white cat relentlessly trying to climb onto one of the blue mimosa trees. I saw no one beside the dog and cat. All I could sense was a penetrating silence. Inside the bungalow, she showed me the living room, the kitchen, the bedrooms, and the restroom. She showed me a place for me to sleep. The room was quite small with space enough only for me. Don't worry, she said jokingly, we can sleep together sometime in my bedroom. I didn't pay attention to her joke, and she didn't bother to look if I had laughed or not. She was on her phone, talking to her boss. That night, we slept together on the same bed. She wouldn't allow me to touch her though. There was always a gap between us, and although I was vaguely aware I was sleeping on the same bed as her, I feel like I was sleeping alone. It was rather dreamlike sleep that I slept that night, and it was dreamlike experience, one that was real and unreal at the same time. The next day over lunch, she declared she was going to New York for business purposes with her boss the following day. She told me not to worry and said she would return as soon as possible. She also gave me a list of things to do. These include gardening, feeding her Tibetan mastiff, and her white cat, and cleaning the rooms every week, among various other things. I couldn't understand what was happening. A week after her, as I was cleaning her room, I happened to see a piece of folded paper on her coffee table. Out of curiosity, I unfolded it and began to read. I was shocked to realize that paper was an agreement signed by my father. It clearly mentioned I had been officially sold as slave and caretaker to that busy woman. At that moment, the writer in me had been roused by madness. Time and circumstances had played me, and that created a sound, a beautiful sound that, when translated into words, became this. Because I didn't know how to swim, I dived into the ocean of love. Ever since, I have been writing madly. Loneliness is eating away at me. Loneliness is eating away at me.